Okay, so what's the width of this boss here? 15.8, call it 16. So that's the size of the hole that I need to drill for that. So here I am under the car, and we're now looking at the other side of the trailing arm. Here's one, there's another one up here, and they pivot on these two bolts here. So this is a kind of box, and there's actually an inside kind of shelf type of thing, strengthening I suppose, just there. So I think that in view of this framework that I've made here, I'm going to go up here for the hole, and that should be well away. So although it does, the trailing arms obviously do go up and down, right here, right close to the pivot point, they hardly move at all. The magic of time lapse. My small hole is now a big hole, and this boss should go through. Ooh, bit of tolerancing, maybe a bit of file work required there. So finally, I've got my clip on. There it is. And I had to squash it slightly in the vise and pinch it up with some large plier things. So that's all ready to have the copper brake pipe attached into it, just as soon as my brake pipe unions come. Okay, as well as brake calipers, hoses, of course we need other metal brake pipes and so on. And it does appear that lots of brake pipe unions, which I've just turned up from eBay, are what I would describe as a very unusual thread pitch of 1mm, and whether that's M10 by 1mm on the, just putting them down here, on the brake caliper, or in this case M12, which is for the master cylinder. And I had that M12, and this is M12 fine. So that hopefully will fit, and hopefully it will fit, and yes it does. So I've got two of those. I had to buy a packet of 10 or whatever that is. So yeah, I can now go about fitting this brake pipe into that master cylinder. Now this is interesting. I'm looking at the BMW 1 Series master cylinder here, and I'm noticing number 22, 23. Now is it possible that's the size of the actual cylinder for the back and the front, and the smaller the bore of the master cylinder, the more brake effort goes towards that end. And the reverse is true. At the wheel cylinder end, the larger it is, then the more effort, and the master cylinder, the smaller it is, then the more effort. But of course we want less effort at the back of the car anyway, so I'm going to assume for the moment that 22 means the front, because more effort goes to the front. We'll find out later whether I was actually correct about that. Brake pipes again. So I've sort of preliminary, what's the word? I've done a preliminary installation. None of the pipes are actually fixed up yet, but they are connected. So front and rear there, going to a three-way, four-way with the brake pipe, brake light switch union just there. Did you notice something? Coming towards the back of the car, we have the half plumbed in hydraulic handbrake, waiting for the correct union to come, because that's not it. It turns out that this thing has got imperial threads. Who'd have thought it? So we've got 7/16 UNF and 3/8 UNF, and nowhere on the sales place could I find any information about what thread size they were. But yeah, and the larger one, which I think is the 7/16 UNF, has actually got a I don't know what you call it, an inverse flare. So the end of it is like a trumpet rather than like a oboe, which is how I think of it. So the flare goes out rather than like that, like as most of them do. Yeah, so I'm just waiting for a widget to turn up for that. And under the back of the car, what do we have? We have a lot of stuff. I struggled for a long time to find the right place to put this. Eventually, because there's a M8 bolt in there, so I actually drilled out the three-way union, which is normally M6, to take M8 instead. The prop shaft could be an issue, but as you might see, there's a kind of tunnel, and I just made the brake pipe go over that. It probably will take some more massaging. In fact, all this stuff will be. And here we have the more flexible pipes on the other side of this union that go down. In fact, this is the end of it here, which needs to be connected up to the caliper. While I think of it, I've also got, so I've got this reservoir, brake fluid reservoir idea connected. Pipes are much too stiff, and being, I suppose, what they call polythene? Yeah, probably polythene pipes. I don't fancy their chances in the engine bay, but also on order some other widgets, which I believe enables me to use 7mm pipe. That's the internal diameter rather than this great big thick stuff. And here we are. There's my 7/16 UNF and my 3/8 UNF, and they are surprisingly similar to metric equivalents. So here's an M10, just for the comparison. M10, and next to it M10, and next to it 3/8 UNF. So I have to complete the plumbing all the way out to the wheels, and the brake pipe is not connected just yet. Yes, it did spend a little while outside a couple of days ago. You can tell, can't you? But in here are my brake pipes. I need to get the light in there. One of the disadvantages of having a mainly fiberglass car is magnetic lamps won't fit, or won't stick, perhaps I should say. Oh well. So, in fact, I have a brake pipe connected here. I have my flexible brake pipe in here, which I think is it more than finger tight, and it clearly needs a bracket for this captive thing to connect to, but I don't want to do welding at the minute. I'll do that when the engine's out of the car, when I'll weld on a plate with a hole in the middle. So I'm going to make a couple of plates with a largish hole in the middle, or within them, not necessarily in the middle, so that this can be put on and fixed into place later. I mean, I'd prefer not to have to re-bleed the brakes later on, but let's face it, what's the chances? I've made my holes, so they can be welded on later. I'm just going to put them into place with the objective that they might not need to bleed the brakes again. You can always hope, can't you? Anyway, so that will go through there, and in due course it will get welded into place. So that's that then, really. So there we have my plate ready to be welded, and tightened up the fitting with a 11mm on the small side, and what is that, 19 I think, 19 on this thing here. But before I do that, I need to do this up. Now this is the banjo connection. So I got these Vauxhall modular braided brake hoses, which seem pretty good actually. Get them in different lengths, but yeah, I'm using a banjo connection with 2 copper washers, as you can see. So I'm just tightening that up, and this of course is also M10 with a 1mm thread pitch, but in this case with a hexagonal head on it. Whoop. And at the back you can see this was actually a banjo type connection in the first place, albeit unusually this thread is M10 by I think 1.5, the standard, if you like, M10 thread, rather than the M10 fine that there is at the other end of the car. So yeah, that's pretty much how VW had it. So I'm pretty happy with that. So quickly do the other side then. Okay, that's both back wheels plumbed in, and it also, the handbrake is plumbed in, the master cylinder is plumbed in, distribution block is plumbed in, and you might have noticed all this business has changed. So I got these adapters from Car Builder Solutions. I may have mentioned this before, but I'm going to say it again. So these brass fittings intended for a Cortina master cylinder to do exactly what I have done here with a remote reservoir, because there isn't room in here for the original one. So I bought this separate one again from Car Builder Solutions, and so I have a remote connection to the original BMW master cylinder. Right, so I have kind of installed this. I made a little clampy thing which takes the place of the original BMW reservoir, master cylinder reservoir. It clamps down with this little pin thing in here, with the brass adapters that I showed you, and the mounting bracket for the reservoir I modified and made a little tab which is screwed on the top of the pedal box. Bit of clearancing had to be done here and there, but yeah, looks pretty neat, doesn't it, I think? So all that remains now is to put some fluid. While I'm here, this is the original reservoir for the BMW master cylinder, and these little spout things are the how it was connected into the cylinder, and yeah, they are indeed, if I can get the thing to actually go in there, 12.5mm, which is the same as the little spout things. So that should replicate how the reservoir was fixed on, including this these little loop things here, which go through the cylinder and mount it through the cylinder casting, I should say, and fix it down into place. So at this point I've no other choice but to put some brake fluid in the reservoir. I've been having a bit of a problem time bleeding the brakes because of leaking joints basically, but I think I've got that over now. But one of the things you might remember from previous is that the front brake calipers I had to fit upside down so that the bleed nipple was at the bottom. Bit of a problem you might think, but here is what I've been doing. So as you won't be surprised perhaps to know, I've had to take the brake caliper off. I'll take the brake caliper off in order to access the bleed nipple, which is down here away. So I'll just take that off. Now the thing is, compared to other classic car situations, of course this is a sliding caliper, and therefore the whole methodology of dealing with the caliper is rather different. Proves to have been rather beneficial. Okay, I've checked my levels and move things around, and finally the pipe is clear. It might be worth pointing out, of course, that none of this would be necessary normally. It's simply while the brakes are being bled. Normal swapping of pads or what have you shouldn't require any of this business, and that would be completely normal. And here we are at the back. To be honest, the ease with which I was able to get this bleeding tube on here was hardly any different to what it was at the front. But anyway, my vacuum tube seems to be working pretty well. Yeah, my black vacuum bleeder seems to be doing a pretty good job. I'd also say that the ease with which I was able to bleed the back brakes was no harder than at the front. Well, sorry, no more what do I mean to say? The ease with which I was able to bleed the back brakes was no easier than it was at the front, due to the slight difficulty of accessing the bleed nipple. So mounting the calipers upside down at the front appears to have been no problem at all. So, do I have a pedal? I'd have to say no. Not yet. No pedal. Except I've discovered, having bolted the hydraulic handbrake down, that when I pull it, yeah, there is what sort of pedal. I described that as a pedal, and now there is a pedal. So I think I have some fine adjustments to do, because as soon as I let that go, the pedal does go to the floor. Either there is air in the system, or I need to do something about the pedal position. So, to be continued. So I had to move the brake fluid reservoir because the intake trunking got in the way where I had put it over here. It's to do with variable inlet length for torque management. I think this is a valve here that switches from long to short, which is all fine and good, but it is huge, unfortunately. Yes, I've had to move that, but other than that, I'd say, yeah, not bad. So the bonnet goes down nicely without clouting anything, which is good. Well, here we have it, kind of. Put it back together again to a certain degree. Got the dashboard blank in there, got the gear lever back in there, and my hydraulic handbrake does do the business actually. Obviously there's some things not quite right, which I could do with improving. So yes, there's probably air in the system. Yes, I think there's a brake pipe with a problem here, so I think something's going to happen down here to improve things, but that'll wait till next time, I think. But certainly this gives a very good impression of the braking system, if you like, in action. See you soon.